Strike a Chord, music chit-chat with your host, Valentino Kikowski. Welcome to the Strike a Chord Podcast, and with me, it gives me great pleasure to have this man on my podcast, Simon Gardner. I've been hanging to have you on since I started these podcasts. Simon, welcome to the podcast.
Valentino, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. I'm honoured to be here. You've had
the pleasure's all mine.
So
we've known
really
each other for a while now. Good friends and colleagues, and look, I've wanted to have you on, seeing if you're going to come into Melbourne so we can do it here, but maybe later on, maybe in the future, you know.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I'll never turn down a trip to Melbourne. That's for sure.
Look, yeah. Melbourne's Melbourne, right?
Yeah.
But look, Simon, you're a by genre rock guitarist, but I think you're more than that. I think you're very versatile, and you've got a lot of musical background in that. Your inspirations. How did Simon Gardner, the guitarist, start out as a guitarist? Because I know you started playing from a young age, but what were your influences? What brought you into this world of music and of guitar?
For me, just getting guitar lessons at school to start with. I loved instrumental guitar. Right from the word go. That's always been my thing, and probably will be, and from here on out, I guess.
Yep. I hear.
I just really love it. I'm always compelled by great melodies, and the guitar talking the melodies. I just never tire of it. I never tire of the instrument at all. And so for me, it was just one of those natural progressions, I guess. So from having a great guitar teacher to start with, and then listening to early blues and instrumental stuff by guitar players like Charlie Bird.
Yeah,
it was very, very popular. Like playing, and Wes Montgomery playing those hits. You know, like those mainstream hits. They're like having pop instrumentals.
That's
These
right.
guys are playing these little melodies.
They get into your ear. You know.
So great. And, I still find today the hardest thing to do in music is to write a really, really good melody. It's just, and to execute it so you're singing through your guitar. That's my eternal sort of challenge.
Yeah, interesting you should say that. To write a melody and to have it in your head is one thing. To execute it is a totally different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's every... the slower things, like all things present their challenges for sure, but the slower melodies, or the melodies that don't have a lot of notes in them, oh gosh, because there's so much space, every note needs to count. And people talk about that, a lot about, you make every note count, but when you really actually have to make every note count, and you have to repeat it, not like a guitar player, but like I say, for me anyway, trying to sing through my guitar. That's my voice. So that is the grail. If I can write a great melody and execute it the way I want to execute it and express it to get that message across of the song, then that for me is like the big thing. Like, I love exciting guitar players. Don't get me wrong. I love guitar players who have flair.
Oh, don't we all?
And play with great technique and fire and all that, particularly in the rock genres and that, which I love. Yeah. But I do love it, but just the great melody just trumps it every time. Yeah, every time, just knocks it out of the park. So
I think you're definitely right. And what complements it is the surroundings, the progression that comes, the chord progressions, the harmonies that come around it. Because you got to make it justice. I mean, your melody is melody, and it's a great melody. But if you don't do the right arrangements and you don't put the right chords in and the right thing, it could make or break it,
Oh, most definitely. That's its frame. That's where it lives. I always, whenever I'm lecturing and talking about theory, I always sort of use terms like it's a musical ecosystem.
Yeah.
Everything's inextricably linked all the time.
Sure.
So it's very, very important. I talk about the melody, but the melody is only relative to the chords that are happening, the harmony, and how does that harmony support the melody so the melody can go forward. A bit like, when you play in bands as a guitar player, and you're out treading the boards, which I still do quite a lot of, and you're out playing, your role there is very supportive to support singers, right? And
Correct.
to really have them
Correct.
forward, and because
Yep.
they're your
That's
literally
right.
your voice box for your audience.
That's
So
right.
they need to be supportive and are supported, and you're always thinking, how do I? I'm always thinking, how do I make this a better tune? How do I sort of give the singer that framework to be able to really go for it and express it?
And that's a very important thing, because not only are you're supporting it, but you're aware of your surroundings, and that's very important for a musician. If you're not aware, you can't accompany, you can't support, you can't. It's very hard to work with people if you're not there supporting them, you're not there aware of what's going on in the surroundings.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree 100%. Anymore. It's 100% right. I think that is. I quite often talk about with students that the greatest asset is your ears. It's actually
Correct.
not your hands. Your ears are everything, and that awareness, that being present and being aware of what you're doing and how does it work in the bigger picture. That's a lifetime's work. That's a lot of experience. That's a lot of repetition. That's a lot of error, and that's a lot of just playing and listening back to what you do. All of that. It's just very much a practice-led skill that you can do in the rehearsal studio. But you've got to be out working in front of people.
Correct.
I think, to see what floats. I remember reading about Paul Gilbert talking about his live solos that he used to do.
Yeah.
And, unbelievable guitar player. He's one of my favourite guitar players for sure. And not because of his chops. His chops are great, but it's just the way he plays, his attack, that venom in his playing. It's so compelling. But he used to say that when he'd go live, there was a lot of stuff he'd end up leaving out, because he'd be playing 40,000, 20,000 seaters with Mr. Big, and there'd be, in those solos he'd leave out a lot of things because they'd end up not being effective.
Yeah.
So he'd end up sort of playing simpler things, but with real emphasis, and so they would have that impact that would help the song.
Yeah.
I just saw that was really quite profound. That had a profound effect on me for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the difference between playing live and then playing in a studio as well. There's different dynamics. Like in a studio, your mindset's different. What about if we do this? What do we do that? And you tend to be, I tend to be more technical and more. In studio, you want to show what you're really capable of. But when you're live, you need to really read the crowd as well. You need to have that soul on stage, And I think
you need to be very generous with it too.
Yeah, that dynamic within the band. If you're playing with the band, if you're playing solo, well, then that's a different dynamic altogether. But you're working then directly with the people, with the public. But in the band sense, everything changes dynamically, and it's a great thing because there'll be some things that you've never played before, you haven't experienced before with the band, and that magic,
it is magic, and it's hard too.
Yeah.
It's like it's a challenge unto itself, because more people equals more challenge, equals more things to go awry.
Of course,
and you're part of that as well. So again, that's where you come back to the awareness.
That's right, the self-awareness, and I think the other thing there is knowing what your capabilities are. If you're capable of doing these, we'll do it. But if you're thinking that you're not up that, because I've been in that position myself, I'm not capable of doing this progression or that riff and a live thing. It's not playing it cautious, but it's doing it not to confuse or affect the other band members, I think.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's my sort of take on it.
Oh, I agree. Because you're being more effective by doing that.
Yeah, correct.
Aren't you? You're sort of working within the realm that you can work for that given moment.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And again, you're thinking, how do I make this a better, musical scenario? Is the song going to be better for me being here? Hopefully you could say yes and not no.
That's right.
I've had plenty of times where it's been no.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man.
I know.
Probably should have just stayed at home tonight, So.
But even their experiences, right?
Anyway, you got to do them. They're all process that you've got to go through.
Of course.
Which is really cool. It's not nice sometimes.
Of course.
Now,
Rick Purdy.
Yeah.
Your first teacher, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Now, just to put things into context, rock guitarist, but you started with a jazz guitarist.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
Rick was a jazz player, but he used to play. He
everything.
used to teach us. I still remember "Crazy Little Thing Called Love" when that came out.
Yeah,
He taught us how
yeah,
to play it. He used to have this big mate in Mayfair
yeah,
with
yeah.
these strings that were like fence wire, and he used to let us play his guitar while he'd be having a smoke.
Yeah, my
Have
dad
a
used to
smoke.
have a Maton, similar sunburst Maton to that. Yeah,
Unreal.
yeah.
That sound, I still remember it. And that's so long ago now, but he was wonderful because he was so demonstrative as a player, and occasionally you'd go into your lesson a bit early or whatever or late, and he would already be just playing, filling in time. But the sounds that this beauty in his playing was so fantastic. He was, and as time goes, I'm sure it becomes more of a romantic view in my mind about how wonderful it was as a teacher. But he was also, his story was of another time as well. Like he left school when he was 15
Oh, really?
to,
I didn't
to,
know.
to teach guitar,
Oh,
and
jeez.
he married, I think, one of his first students, and they stayed
Oh,
married.
really?
And he went on to become a cabinet maker because they had a family very young.
Yep.
I think they got married when they were 19 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he just gigged. So he'd do cabinet making during the day, then gigged. And he was getting too worn out, so he went to become a guitar teacher, but he'd be playing 5 nights a week.
Jeez.
He used to say to me, I'm playing at the Sheridan tonight. You got to come down. This is like a Monday night, Tuesday night. Like in those days, that's what those guys did. They just
That was a normal
the whole
thing.
time.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, my dad used to play 7 nights. He used to
Unreal.
go, I'm just playing at that time. Yep.
That's-
This was back 80s, the 80s and the 90s. It's just a different thing. You can't fathom that sort of thing now. It's a bit of, obviously times have shifted, but, can you imagine the playing they got? Like, they were really gig fit, like
Oh, yeah. Just
night
so-
after night after night,
Yeah, that's it. And I could just about bet my house they weren't feeling great every night.
Oh, no. That'd be exhausting.
That'd be. I know. I think it caught up with Rick. He led a pretty hard life in the end. He gigged a lot. And all the things that go with being out at night. So and gigging in that environment, so what you call a particularly healthy environment per se.
Correct. And back in that day, it was a quite unhealthy environment. But the passion of the music, the passion of your instrument, that passion overpowered everything, I think. It was it was a living, but it was more than that, as it is for us now as well. It's more than a living.
It's way of life.
Way of life. Yeah.
So,
now, Simon, you've come out with a few recordings, and I know I've got a couple of them, and Choose Your Own Adventure that was my first one. I think you gave it to me. But I listened to sketches.
Yeah.
Different.
Oh yeah.
It's like acoustic. I really like it. Acoustic guitar, experimental a little bit. What was the inspiration behind that? Because I know how you play, and I know you get into the shred and you get into the rock. But
I love it.
And you love that as well.
Yeah. I think I've always had a real, very strong affiliation to those sorts of sounds. Now you've got to remember, I grew up in the '80s playing guitar.
Yeah.
The golden era for guitar playing.
I hear.
They're from a rock perspective, but all perspectives for guitar playing was just a natural evolution that sort of almost just got too big and fell down over itself. But at the same time, a lot of people have forgotten that New Age music at the same time was absolutely enormous.
New Age, yeah, it was.
It
was.
Clannad, all of these, and I used to love that stuff, and I think that what I loved about it was the textural aspect of it.
Yeah.
So there'd just be very soft textures washing over you, and the way that it was recorded was very beautiful. And it always appealed to me. The other guitarist for sketches that really inspired me was Pat Metheny. His early recordings. I just think he's a remarkable musician in general.
He's a god.
Purely as a guitar player.
Yeah.
Quite a young prodigy, really, in a lot
of course.
of ways, with Bright Size Life. But I loved the texture of that. So it's very dreamy, very soft, very, and The other thing too about doing that type of a record, you can be super melodic with it. Like you're never having to fight for a melody. You're never having to fight for the volume. You know, you're never having, and in rock a lot of times, which is part of its sound. It's a very visceral sound and very visceral form, rock. So there is a bit of that fight in there. You know, vibrato's different, the tone's more aggressive, all of that sort of stuff. Whereas Sketches is very ethereal, and it's very soft. It's supposed to sound like it does, which is very like a dreamscape almost. But there's also some really quite progressive music in there as well. So it's sort of, it's definitely, whenever I hear it, it's one of those things, well, yeah, it's definitely one of those albums that I've done and that music I've done. I can remember absolutely doing the whole thing. I don't know why. Maybe it's just like that really super true music you do sometimes. And it ended up being quite popular because
it's a great album.
It's very soft and it's very engaging. From that, and it's not invasive like some of the rock stuff. Quite, you know, in your face.
But you would have had to change, like, you're playing it, and I know someone knows, but your mindset of the actual recording would have had to change. Your mindset, as in not only playing, but how this is going to sound, how that's going to sound, what the mix is going to be like, what instruments am I going to put in, how am I going to layer this, how am I going to do that. So was that the case?
Yeah, most definitely. The whole technical aspect too, playing the nylon string, the string tension being so low.
Yeah, I know.
And totally. And I have about probably a quarter of your dexterity and technique with the instrument and connection with nylon string, like you do. That's it's such your voice on that instrument is so
that's
powerful, and so impressive. For me, I just chase. I chase sounds very much. So there's not a real style per se with that record. So I had to sort of shift around, working. I just want to make sounds as opposed to going, I'm going to do it in this style.
Interesting.
I just really want to make sounds, and I'll just follow sounds. And like I say, when you're not fighting to hear yourself, and when you're not fighting to this, you can listen and really work on melodies, because it was all a fair bit slower, the music. And I could really focus just on playing the notes and getting them to sound the way I wanted, which meant that sort of manifests itself in changing your technique, because that the outcome needs to change, so therefore it has to change here and how.
Correct.
You know, so everything is that heightened. There's the sound. Is it what I want? No. How am I going to change it? How am I going to get it to be what I want it to be? And so with Sketches, it was very much like that. I think it was that time in my life too. I don't know. It's just a very creative point in my life at that point.
It's different. The phases you go through.
I actually love that record.
Yeah, so do I. It's a reflection of the part of your life, you know. Hey, it's a great.
Yeah, it is.
Great album.
It's a very true one too. Like it's very true. I wasn't trying to do anything really with that. In fact, I remember now. It was actually I was encouraged along to do it as part of there's a hospice service. I've forgotten the name. I can't believe that. But anyway, to do a launch of this hospice. So yeah, that was kind of like the rudder. You know how you might be recording and doing stuff, and you go, yeah, this is all great. So what am I going to do with it? You know, and then all of a sudden you have this opportunity. You go, right, well, I'm going to release this at a CD launch for this. And all of a sudden you've got a rudder, and it takes you, it gives you that sense of accountability and direction.
That's what you're meant to do. It was like a calling. It was like, that's the path. That's the journey.
Yeah. So,
which is a magic in itself, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That's the magic of power of creation.
Yeah, of course.
Really, very, that again, I use that word compelling. For me, that when I look around at everything around me in the world, around us, at one point it was just someone's idea, and yet these things happen, and it's just like that with your compositions as well.
Yeah,
you have this idea. I want to make this sound that sounds like this, and you have this idea, and then you start working on it. You throw out more ideas and keep it, of course, but just that how, and then at the end of it, you get that fill clip, or you get that single back, and you go, well, I remember when that was just a couple of notes on my guitar.
Yeah.
Now I've this. How does that happen? It's incredible.
It's incredible, and what you mentioned about sound. There's a lot of guitarists that want to actually play riffs or licks or passages or something, and they're trying to emulate, or they're trying to get an idea from a well-known artist, whether it be guitar, keys, or whatever. But going for, I want to make a sound, I want to produce a sound, that to me is next level, So, there's a lot of things that we, at some stage we all try to emulate someone, our legends and stuff like that. But going for that, as you said, I'm trying to get that sound, trying to get this sound. That is where you're out of the box,
Yeah, I think that's the.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
No, that's because you're really getting into here.
Correct.
And you're really trying to pull out that stuff, and you get letting go of your ego and your fear of, I don't. Then no one's going to like this. It just sounds silly, or it doesn't. It's not impressive enough. Now, I think guitar players we're terribly. In fact, maybe a lot of musicians, but generally guitar players, we're sort of obsessed. Maybe it's the way we were brought up. I don't know what
and
it is.
And we're insecure at the same time.
Very insecure. And we've got to show how well we can play. And maybe first because we spend 90% of our time practicing the things we spend 5% playing. So if you've got 8 bars of solo, it's just full gas.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. And so maybe that's, I don't know. But yeah, chasing the sounds, that's the thing. And you can't help. Like, nothing's created in a void. See, this is the thing. So you chase that sound, but it might come through the guise of other things that you've listened to, the frameworks and that. And,
because you've got that vault in your head.
Oh, you do.
Sometimes you unlock that vault and things come spilling out and you think, oh, hang on, this sounds familiar.
Yeah.
But so does this. So where am I hearing this from? And until you play it, and then you think, oh, okay, I know where I'm headed now. But it takes a while to get there, because sometimes you've got an overload in your head. And sometimes, you think, stop playing, stop listening, and just take a step back,
Oh, yeah.
It gets
tight. Must be, that must be, for you, playing, say, a more traditional style, if you like, or genre, I should say, not style. It's more than a style. It's a culture, really, isn't it?
It is.
Is the lineage is such that it has its rules and has its
but they're breaking down a little bit, which is good.
Yeah, I remember because I asked you about Paco de Lucia, and you said Paco is God. Paco is God.
He's God,
and everyone says that.
Yeah,
everyone says that about him.
But when he actually started playing his stuff at the age of maybe 20 odd or something like that, and he changed the position of actually holding the guitar, and his first solo concert in Madrid, he got ridiculed for it.
Yeah.
And it must have affected him some way, but he pushed on. He was the first one to bring electric bass in flamenco. He was the first to bring a percussionist into flamenco. Mind you, he was a Brazilian percussionist playing a Peruvian box. And he just did things out of the box, and people said, no. It's like your traditional. You get a lot of those blues people as well, a lot of those old rock people. Oh, no, when they listen to people like John Petrucci or, there's no...
Oh, even blues guys within the blues, if some people think there's no one after Muddy Waters,
correct. And then you got Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know what I mean? So,
no, terrible, Stevie Ray Vaughan, that's not blues,
It's the devil,
oh yeah, for sure. And Clapton copped that as well in America. Like, but he was not
But they're the ones. They're the ones that are chasing that sound. They're the ones chasing that sound, and that shows a lot of courage in a musician, and a lot of creativity. And the person who's doing that is looking to widen the perspective. Even me as a flamenco guitarist, I play flamenco, but I listen to so many other different genres, and I love other different genres. I'm a prog metal guy, right? I love prog metal, right?
Yeah.
And I love your playing as well, because your playing is not only rock, but you delve into those other little things, and you can hear it. You can hear it tapping on the door, but it's not right. It's not there, because I've got something else to show you. Hang on, That's what I love about your playing, Simon.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you,
there,
Brent.
and it's here's your bit of traditional, your licks, but here's a bit of something else for you to have a think about, which I love. And your recordings are, they're like the band is in your room, like they're playing here, And that's what I love. The drums, the keys, the bass. It's like you're sitting in the middle of the band. How did you produce that? How did you get the band to actually produce that?
Well, I just, for me, again, like talking about chasing sounds, I'm a big Zeppelin fan. I love, and one of the things I love about Zeppelin and Purple, early Purple, that those recordings are benchmark recordings.
Yeah.
And and because they were so, when I was used to listen to a lot of that, it was so impressionable. It just kind of ended up sort of tattooing itself on my oral history, And so now I kind of have this sort of benchmark that I chase in my sounds, and the more that I do, again, like anything, you just got to keep doing it. My goals chain had developed over time to making recordings and guitar playing that is expressive but also sounds really good. So if no matter who puts it on goes, geez, that's a great sound. Where's the singing? Or I don't even really like it, but gee, it sounds good. That guy sounds like he's pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, because I get that all the time. So it's just sort of, you work through these things. How am I going to manage this in myself so I can get up tomorrow morning and get on with the day? You sort of go, well, people aren't going to change, are they? They're going to say, listen, have you thought about getting a female singer? You'll be a star. It's like,
so many times to me too. But you know what?
It's such bullshit.
It is. But with your playing, it's like you forget that there should be a singer.
Thank you.
That's the thing where.
That's a great compliment, because that says there's enough there, for you when you're listening, and that's a great compliment. That makes me feel really good, like a good sense of achievement.
And it's not just coming from a musician's perspective, but coming from a person who's just listening, right?
Yeah.
Now, I find it hard just to listen to music because I analyze a lot.
Oh, of course you do.
But I gave it to my son. And my son's he's coming up to he's a metal guy. He likes metal. And I go, listen to this, and he just sat there and just listened, didn't say anything. And I go, what do you think? He goes, yep. And he's 16 years old, so he's getting into all of that, and he didn't mention anything about singers or anything like that. He goes, but this is the thing where it's multi-generational. I think your music, it doesn't matter who listens to it, and that's why you're very diverse, and that's why I mentioned sketches as well, because that not every guitarist will take on an album or a project like that. Some people have their reservations about it.
Look, for me, I'm actually just started my master's degree, and my master's degree is an album project that I'm doing at the moment.
Cool.
And it's one of those things where I've just gone, right, this is just the music I'm going to play. Because I just go, why not? Why wouldn't you just go, this is what I want to say? Yeah. I mean, totally. Really, at the end of the day, in 20 years' time, when you listen to that record, it's gonna be a little memory file for you. So a big thing for me, you're talking about your son, he's a guitar player. My kids play as well. My son's a guitar player, really good metal player. Awesome. He's got such great feel for metal, and in that sort of Pantera style. Awesome. So it's got this real swagger, really bit of an edgy rock swagger.
Zach sort of swagger.
It's just totally got it, and great sense of tone,
Oh, awesome.
So a big thing for me, Valentino, is to leave a legacy for my family and my children as well. So that's one of the reasons I do what I do recording wise is so it makes me feel like sometimes when I play, it's almost like I go, oh, there you are. There you are, Simon. Good. Yep. Like it's just my identity to myself.
Yeah.
And I get that nice connect.
That fulfillment.
And so you feel like a person. You don't feel like something imposter all the time. You
Yep.
go,
Yep.
this is good, And when you play your own music, I think that's where you have that direct line.
Correct.
And you stop thinking about whether things are good or bad. You actually just start really loving the process of creation.
Yep.
And it's very challenging, and you'll lose more than you win.
Oh, of
Like
course.
your winning outcome of your album or your single is actually you've lost so many battles to get to that point. You've discarded so many ideas. You've sworn at yourself that many times.
Yep.
There's so much self-deprecation and loathing going on about your own playing and how terrible you are.
Yeah.
But that's actually all part of this sort of
Process.
process that we go through. And it seems to be a very common thing. But my point is that why wouldn't you just do that? At this point in my life, I'm just like, oh man, I'm just going to make these songs. I've got to get this out. I've got to do this. It's like, well, there might be one or two people, or two now that you've said you enjoy my music. So two people who might go,
I think there's many more
great,
than that,
Simon's
mate.
got something coming out.
Yeah.
I might have a listen to it, and that's awesome. But it's not the driver. Like it can't be the driver for it.
No, it can't. Otherwise, you'll never release anything. You'll never record anything. You'll never play anything.
That's right. You never play anything. You never do anything because it'll never be good enough. And you'll always measure yourself against people like Polyphia and people like that who are extraordinary, or Guthrie Govan, and you just go, oh my God. I mean, but the thing about it is it's not a race. As incredible as that music is, and it's great because it's so modern.
Yeah.
It's reflecting to us. It's saying these guys, this is how they hear the world.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that. You just go, this is really, it's a bit sort of confronting in some ways. It's so full on. So, I love that, but that's their expression.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? You can't measure your expression against theirs. It's sort of a futile thing.
And you're correct. And if you do go down that path where you're measuring it up against that, you're going to end up in a mess, mind-wise, because let's face it, we're all different generations and we all come from different things, and you can't keep up with everybody. So it's going to play tricks with your mind and say, then you're comparing yourself to this, to that, and we've done it before. We know how it is, but you need to snap out of that and start doing things that you really want to do, and what you're doing, what you're talking about, something that's fulfilling, that, when you get that thing, this is me. This is what I do. This is what I can do. These are my capabilities, and this is what I feel. This is my soul,
Yeah. It's amazing that as you develop more like that and you start to create more, how the boundaries of what you thought you were going to do all of a sudden start to just go like this. They just go out wider and wider.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're doing these amazing things, and that's the power of creativity. It's extraordinary.
So true.
It's
true.
cosmic, man. So
And
I read a book which I can only highly recommend if you haven't read it. It's called The War of Art.
Okay.
Man, that book, and one of the premises of that book is that as an artist, you've got to sit down and you've got to work.
Yeah,
and your work is so different. And there's one thing, and this is what made me, if I hadn't read this book, I still wouldn't have released anything in the last 12, 18 months. But it says, if you don't do your art, if you do not do your song, you write your book, do your painting, it will never, ever get done. Because no one else can do it.
So true.
No one else in the
true.
world can do it.
How many times have we lived that?
Far out. I got to do that. I got to do it. I got to see it through. I got to do it. It's like, why? Well, if I don't do it, it doesn't get done. Well, why does it need to be done? Because it's art. It's music. It's actually what the world needs. It's what we're supposed to be doing. We're creating and giving. It's what we do is unconditional giving. When we create music, isn't it? And even more unconditional now, where people don't have to basically pay for it, so they just have it, and it's
That's right. That's right.
So, for me, the War of Art, man, that is I'm
going to read that one.
Yeah.
But in saying that as well, and you touched upon, it's everything's out there, and like it's everything's a gallery now. Everything is a gallery. whatever art it is, whatever it is, or it doesn't even have to be an art anymore.
Yeah.
Everything's out there, and with today's technology and everyone's got access to everything and everything like that.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
and in saying that, when you produce an album, when you record an album, and when you say, all right, it's done. What do I do now? I know we all try to jump on the Spotify bandwagon and trying to get on playlists and this and that, and it can be a very stressful process, right?
Mm.
But for Simon Gardner, is the album more of a thing to put out there just as a personal thing? Is it a thing to get more gigs? Is it a thing to make money from? Where does that sit for you, Simon?
Okay, so I don't think it's purely one thing. I think, to be fair, it is motivated by my own expression. It's easier to put singles out. In fact, I'll do a single first before the album is finished, and I think that's important to do from by keeping your energy up in your profile. So externally, but also for your own productivity. You're going, oh well, I've got, anytime you can set yourself a more achievable goal, you're gonna keep your energy going rather than going, right, I've got to do this massive work. I'm only 60% of the way there.
That's where I'm at the moment. That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, so look, I think like anything, and like your guitar playing, which I'm sure I know that you understand, and that is, to do things well, you've got to break them down into small components.
Yeah.
But you've also got to think, where is this going to end up? So you've got to start with the end in mind, I think, and get that. You've got to have that rudder. Otherwise, it will be just, how long is a piece of string? Yeah. So I think projects, they need to have that deadline. They need to have that that accountability for yourself, or if someone's investing in you, to have that. And whether it would be emotional investment or trust, like you might have musicians playing in you, and you've said to them, we're going to record on these dates, and I'm going to have the demos ready for you by then, and lead sheets if you want them, but I prefer just so you learn the tunes so we can go record. So then you've got to honour that. That's the stuff, and you don't sort of call them up and go, oh, listen, you know what, I haven't had much time to do my demos. And that's bullshit, because you can find time for anything.
I sure can. You sure can.
So my point is that first thing is that just have a goal, and if you miss it, so what? The process of getting to it, you would have achieved more than if you didn't have it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're spot on, because at the moment I'm looking to complete my album.
Yeah.
And I need to complete it, and I've got a deadline of before Christmas, right? But in the last 2 weeks, because I've been recording it on and off. But in the last 2 weeks, I've really
because you're a podcast star now, pal.
Oh, far from it, mate. Far from it.
It's like, oh, let's go to the studio. Where's Valentino? Your old man's there.
Yeah.
My man, he's on a podcast with
someone.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. Yeah, no, God forbid. Anyway, that's a different story. But look, at the end of the day, you're 100% right. You need to really schedule as well. You need to plan. You need to forward plan, and you need to really be accountable for your time. And that's what I found in the last 2 weeks. And mind you, I've also for the last month and a half, I've delved into mixing and mastering. So I used to do it ages ago with your old outboard gear and ADATs and everything like that, but it's a different ball game now. So going into that, and this is where I've probably delayed a few things, because I think I would like to do this whole album end to end, and that's one of my goals, and it's a big goal, but we'll see how we go. But
if you've got that, then you've got to adjust your expectations accordingly.
Exactly. And
you can't go, listen, I hope this done by Christmas because I said I was going to do it. But guess what? I'm going to do everything. So, oh man, that's just a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. But what I did, I sort of put in little goals, targets.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm going to learn about all this, but I need to have it done by, say, November this or October or whatever, right? And I was sort of heading in phases and in stages, and and it's getting there. I've learned a hell of a lot for mixing and mastering, and got all these plugins and everything like that. But the thing that I need to do all the time is have a switch. Switch from being a musician and recording and arranging, composing, to being an audio engineer and going in and saying, all right, well, this is a mix day. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just mixing today, and it's helped me because I've developed a lot as well, and I've learned a lot from a lot of things. I mean, YouTube's unbelievable these days, so you get to see a lot. But that's where I've changed this year as well. I've shifted to more of a, whether you want to take it as a business sort of minded person, but in this sort of week, this week we're going to do this, and I'm going to be committed to doing this, and then the next week I'm going to be committed to doing this, and then you get your people to come in and record and stuff like that. But you're right. You need to have your expectations, and you need to adjust your expectations.
Yeah, I think so, and it's okay for timelines to blow out. It's kind of normal, but you just got to put those things in place first.
Yeah,
you can't
definitely
go, well, what if? Because the what if, tomorrow never comes. It's one of those things, isn't it? So
correct.
You've got to at least try it. You're better to try and fail than you are to just put it off. And I've done that. I've done it terribly. If I could change, one of many things in my life in the past would be not put stuff off for whatever reason. Like just keep your output high.
Correct.
Because that keeps your quality high. It keeps you developing. Because every time you do a recording, you get better at it. That's the goal. Rather than going, this is the one that's going to do this and this, you're actually going, this is just another one. This is just another step. This is another step. And every time you do it, you're going, I really like this. Well, I'm going, this next recording, I want it to sound amazing. So it sounds really like you were saying before, you're in the room, but there's an electricity about it,
Yeah.
But it's got really, really this special energy about it. I'm thinking, how am I going to capture that? So I've got someone to work with. So because I don't know how to do that, I know I can play it, and I know what I'm hearing in the room. And when it gets good, I go, if there's any way that we could capture this and bottle it, we'd be millionaires. It's incredible. So that's what I'm thinking. But so I've got someone to co-produce with me as part of my project, and gee whiz, that's brilliant to have someone to bounce ideas off who's not going to just go, oh yeah, good idea, oh you're great, that's a good idea. They're going to go, so why would you do that? It's like, and then you have to start explaining and talking, and then you end up answering your own questions a lot of the time, don't you? So
I've got
about this. Non-tactile thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've got a colleague here that I have those conversations with, and it's a refreshing conversation because you're not siloed. Because you know how it is. Sometimes recording it can be very siloed, and you get into a bubble, and it can be counterproductive. But when you get someone else coming in, and I've got a few completed tracks off my album, and I've sent it to him to have a look, to have it listened to. And I changed a few things only because it brings things into perspective. Not too many things, but it brings things into perspective. And you just think these little things can maybe make it a bit better, and you take it on board. But if it was me about 30 years ago, I probably wouldn't have given it to anyone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I know exactly what
it's all about experience. It's all about,
not being afraid as well, not being fearful. So the beauty is in the process. That's where the gold is in that process of making.
So true.
Yeah, so true. So I think for me, it's definitely a personal goal is to create more music and create a good album. From a marketing perspective, the feedback I've had, and I would guess that for yourself as well, that is that in our genres, which are more what would I say, music. Serious music genres. Yes, and again, in inverted commas, it's a derogatory comment to any other music,
that's
but
right.
It's more this idea of serious music listeners will say. More feedback I get is, I really enjoyed your last single. When's your album coming out? When are you going to put another album out? Like, and so it goes. You know, I love the way that it was like a journey. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, you know, the advice that you get from people in the streaming services and stuff goes, it's all about the single. You've got to get a single out. You've got to do this. Yeah, and then the penny started to drop a bit for me, where I'm thinking, hold on, these are kids. These guys are 20, 22 years old, and what they're talking about is right, but it's not for. They don't listen to the sort of music I listen to.
No,
Yet the people who are asking me for albums, that's my audience.
That's your audience, correct?
And the people who are interested in the music from a business point of view are asking for more material. They want an album. So that sort of says to me they know their public, and they know that their public who enjoys guitar music and instrumental music wants more than just a single, because that's not pop music, you know. So
that's right.
You know what I mean? So it's just a different. I think what you need to be clever about is how you see yourself. If you were doing, just say for instance, you know, instrumental guitar or flamenco guitar music was all of a sudden top of the charts. Everyone would be going, "Here's my instrumental track, is my new single, blah 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 blah." I don't think that's no disrespect, but I don't think it's going to happen to us anytime soon. And that's I'm comfortable. It hasn't been that good since the Sash.
Yeah.
And then before that it was Jeff Beck, and then before that was a Shadow.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but I think you know, that's when the paradigm shifts, and it's what people want. But I think in general, I think we should be focusing more on just getting out this product, because of the sort of the nature of the music that we do.
Well, it's as you said before, you got to get your art out there. You got to complete your art.
Yeah.
You got to do it right.
Yeah.
And it keeps you, I think, and it keeps you current as well. You know, you're out there. People are watching what you do. You're doing things, and you know, the only thing now is that you got to do a lot more for one thing now. Like, you got to be more engaging. You got to be on social media. You got to drive that whole train. You got to drive all of that. You know, which is, I think it's just a standard thing now. But you know, like, you know, that social media thing still gives me anxiety every now and then, and it's like, oh, you know, and it's work on top of work as well. You know,
I just see it as because I don't really understand it. I don't understand what it does. I don't.
I agree.
Like, everyone talks about awareness. Like, everyone's going to be aware. Or if they're aware, why don't they just come to my show? they're aware, but no one wants to come. They think I'm shit. What's going on?
Yeah,
like,
what's going on? I'm
aware.
But they're aware. Where's the connection?
Where is everyone? You know?
I know.
Like, I don't know. I'm sure. I'm sure there's something there. I just don't know. I think it might be a generational thing. I don't know. I don't know.
That plays a part.
All I want to do is make sure that anytime I present anything on social media, that I present something well, and that it's something meaningful to me.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't want to become an influencer. I have no respect for that at all. That's you know, it's
me too.
That's
totally
nothing
agree,
in
Simon.
Yeah, nothing in my sphere wants me to do that. But at the same time, I'm not anti social media per se.
Oh, no. I mean,
it's here. I think it's just, you've got to learn how to manage it. I don't know enough about it to really. Again, I'll just do my little bits and pieces and try and grow a following. Why do I want to grow a following? Is so hopefully more people will listen to my songs and listen to my music.
And if I can watch you live, you know,
come and watch a show. Yeah, so
because there's nothing like there's nothing like a live performance. You know, it's like.
That's the business.
You know, it still lives. That fire still lives in us, in there. You know,
so
and
much.
getting those butterflies before the show, and there's that it's that driving force within your body saying, oh, you know, get out, and you know, and that's there's
totally
nothing like that.
Yeah, and there's more. Doing that is really liberating. And
sure.
Playing your own music live, and it just becomes more. And like, I remember I did a gig a few weeks ago and it was the first sort of gig I'd done for a few months, is just doing my own stuff, and had a great response and sold all the tickets, and man, it was just like, we're getting to the end of the night, and I'm just going, I'm starting to hear all this stuff while I'm playing, and starting to really go for things, and it took that, if you're doing that all the time, if you're playing live, that's just where you live.
Yeah, exactly.
That dangerous sort of area where you honour your tunes, you execute them really well. But then when it comes to soloing, I leave a lot of my solos when I play live or improvise. So I sort of use loose themes, or if I get an idea in rehearsal and I play something, I like that, I'll use that on Friday night or whatever.
Yeah.
Solos, like for the last couple of singles, I've learnt them because they were very structured, and so I performed them live, and I love them too. They're like, I can't think of anything better to play there. So that's kind of crystallised it, But yeah, that you're right, man. That power and that energy of playing live.
It's a certain type of magic, and things happen, especially when you're a band. You work for one another, and speaking of which, your band. Tell us a bit about the band. You've got bass, drums, keys as well.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a developing thing. So it's one of those things where you sort of, like for me, I hire players. On the last two recordings, everything was done remotely. Everything. So because of where we were,
as you do, but that's sort of like a normal thing now.
It is normal now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the upshots of everything that happened over the last couple of years, is now the whole landscape of work for musicians and the connection. You can connect with people that you wouldn't have dreamed of in your wildest dreams.
Yep.
These famous people, and you can have them playing your record.
Yep.
And you go,
this could never have fathomed the thought.
How could that happen? So things like that. There are some really nice things to come out of it, and So band wise, there's some musicians I just love playing with, and if I can't get them, I tend to. This is probably something I've got to fix. I tend to hold off. I don't.
I'm the same.
Sort of grab anyone.
I'm the same.
Yeah,
because you click. And not only on a musical level, but on a personal level as well. I've always said this: if I can't sit down and have a laugh and have a conversation with the person, that can be a virtuoso. And if I can't sit down and do it, I'm going to be uptight playing with them, and it's not going to be a good thing for anyone to watch that.
No, yeah, that's right.
Whereas you can get, you have these conversations, and I can sit down with you and I can play all day with you.
But
you have that conversation flowing outside of the instrument.
Yeah.
And then when you get the instrument, then it's just shifted onto this. So that's very important for me. And I know how you feel about that, and waiting, holding off. Yeah,
I'd love to on this project. I'd love to. If budget was no option, I'd be outsourcing. A bunch of my favourite players. Well, that's what I tell myself. But then I go, there's actually a couple of guys around here I play with who are kind of my favourite players. And it's like, well, why don't I just call them?
Yeah, but
because you call them up and you sort of, or you send them a message going, they're not going to be interested to play with me. They're going to, it's all.
Same.
And then, you get a good response and you go, this is going to be great. It gets you all inspired because you got great people to be involved with. And also, too, again, talking about accountability before, you get good people involved, you start having higher expectations, I think, and of yourself, making sure you deliver, how you conduct yourself professionally. All of those things are become much more heightened, So,
But look, that's that's the whole point. We're going there to not only produce good music and play good and do, but also have a bit of fun. This is what we do. This is who we are. This is what we do, and we want to make it worthwhile. Not only for us, and most importantly, make it worthwhile for the people who are listening to you.
Just want to share that beautiful joy, passion.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The fun stuff sort of just comes in as part of that
Correct.
part of that sphere,
So true.
of the joy and the giving.
So
That's when
true. And
things
that
sort of,
magic, that
yeah.
happens on stage
Oh,
and in the recording studio and everything, it's
totally, man.
awesome.
Yeah,
Now,
totally.
recently, JMC Academy,
Yeah,
you're a lecturer there.
yeah. So I was a sessional lecturer for 5 years this year, and then I got offered a full time position here. So full
Enjoying it?
time's kind of funny because people kind of go, "Wow, you finally got a full time job," and it's like, man, I've been working the last 30 years with like 3 full time jobs.
Yeah.
It's like, right?
People don't realize it. When you're
Oh
a
my
musician,
God.
it's 24/7. When you're
Oh
sleeping,
yeah.
when you're
No,
awake, when you're
and you're always scratching around for just hustling, and
hustling.
so I'm still doing that to a degree, but I still teach privately. But I do, which I still really enjoy very much. But my actual guitar teaching itself is the least amount I've done, I reckon, in about 25 years. So I still have contact with students and help them with their music, but I teach theory, and I'm the ensemble coordinator here at JMC in Brisbane. So
Nice.
I get to see the students, watch them create, listen to them create, talk to them about what they're doing. It's been I really enjoy it. The lecturers here and the cohort of staff here are just fantastic. So you're sort of amongst your people in this funny little private university where you sort of got, it's so good. And these, like the guy I work with here, Cam Bauer, man, the guy is just anything. Like I could ask him anything about anything in music, and he could just tell me. I mean, he's just brilliant guy, brilliant man,
So good.
Inspiring. I find it very inspiring to be around people with such high intellect and such artistry. He's a beautiful guitar player and musician himself, as well as being a composer. So he's very articulate guy. So really, and there's a few of those lecturers here, and particularly the sessional lecturers, like the guitar player Tim Sladden's here. He's a beautiful guitar player, wonderful singers, great bass player, one of Brisbane's finest bass players we've got here. So you're around these people and you've got direct contact with them all the time. I love that. You can talk to them and ask them how everything's going, and it's just wonderful. Yeah.
And you're continuing your development, your own
Most
development.
definitely.
I mean, all right, you're a lecturer in your full time, but you're continuing your development. That's so important to keeping on.
Yeah, it is. It is. I hope it. I hope it never stops. I think that a couple of times lately, I've had students, say sort of, yeah, I can't wait to get there, one day. And it's like, I'm really sorry to tell you, but there's no there.
No.
There does not exist. If you're an artist and musician, and even in life, there is no there. What are you going to do when you get there? What, are you going to stop? Of course you're not. You're going to go, is this it? I'm going to keep going.
And then that's when the challenges start. Because if you have a goal and you think, all right, I've reached this goal, so now what do I do?
Yeah.
So now you're gonna put another goal in. It's probably going to be bigger, and then you're going to go for that, and then that, and then it goes on.
I think with goal setting, one of the key things with that is to set it before you finish your. If you're coming up to the business and your project, that's actually the time to set your next goal. Yeah. So you just roll on. Otherwise, you can get this. This is awesome, and then just
true. It's happened to
fall
me
into a depression. Yeah. Oh, totally, yeah. Totally, man. I think it's just sort of part of the territory that's a really dangerous, actual slippery slide. That if you can protect yourself against it a little bit, it's inevitable in some way. That coming down off a really amazing gig, off a CD launch, off a release, off anything, a great session that you're working with people, or a great gig, that come down is always that's always a bit of a dangerous area, I think, and it's you got to be how you manage that. I think one of the things about being older as a musician is that you figured out ways to get through that, so it's not too damaging to your day to day, and take you back.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Look, Simon. It's been great. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. As I said, you're one of my the first ones that I thought about, and it's finally come to this. So thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have a chat with you, and maybe the next one we can do here in Melbourne, where I usually do it. But
Totally,
and we can have
man.
a jam as well.
Totally.
Look, I wish you all the very best with everything as well. It's coming from the bottom of our heart, and looking forward to your next release and your next projects and stuff like that. But look,
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on your wonderful podcasts and on your own music as well. I can't wait to hear it. I love hearing you, watching you play. So it's been wonderful, mate. So good to see you, my friend. And yes, definitely, dude. I'm coming to Melbourne. So
yeah, definitely.
We'll hang out.
All right, Simon. Thanks once again, huh?
All the best, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the Strike a Chord podcast. Be sure to visit valentinoflamenco.com to access more podcast episodes, news, and other projects that I'm currently working on. Thanks for listening and watching.